Today, we're going to talk about how to have uncomfortable conversations with patients. This is Chen Yen, your 6 and 7 figure practice makeover mentor at Introverted Visionary, your host of the Cairo Secure Show today. So, wouldn't we just love it if patients would follow through with care, show up on time, always pay on time, and never mess up our schedule too by showing up late or canceling and rescheduling and things like that? So that would be amazing in a perfect world, but it doesn't always happen. And so what can you do when you end up finding yourself in these situations and then you feel like you don't like to have you're non-confrontational, you don't like to have uncomfortable conversations with your patients, and but then there's a part of you that feels annoyed or frustrated, and what do you do in that situation? So let's talk a little bit about three common situations this kind of an uncomfortable situation can happen for for you experiencing it as a doctor, as a practitioner. So the first thing is, have you ever had people who reschedule and then sometimes they're chronic reschedulers. They are they reschedule once and then they always try to reschedule very late, very close to the appointment time, and either you have a policy in place or not, but then they still end up rescheduling really close. So perhaps you have a policy in place and they just reschedule every single time or many times frequently, that it just cuts it so it's not outside of your policy of, like cancellation fee or no, I mean reschedule fee or things like that. But then it's still hovering around that time frame where it ends up affecting your workflow. It affects other patients from not being able to see you in the practice because that patient had taken up that time and now is rescheduling, right? So it could happen, the rescheduling could happen with cancellation situations or no shows. That's one kind of a situation of uncomfortable situation. We're also going to talk today about payment issues. So, where people end up not paying you, but you continue to treat them, and then what happens? Or if they request to, maybe you offer packages or treatment plan, and then they request to back out, like those kinds of uncomfortable situations for either you as a doctor or your front desk or whoever is supporting you, patient care coordinator who's supporting you with that conversation. Or the third kind of common scenario that where uncomfortable conversations can come up, or uncomfortable situations that would be good to have a conversation about, would be seeing sometimes seeing patients not follow through with their treatment plan, but then they have these expectations that they should be getting better by this point in time, and that they're not really following your recommendations, but they still expect the results, and you to fix them overnight, right? And then they get grumpy, and then you feel frustrated because it's because they aren't following their treatment plan. But how do you really communicate that in such a way that they feel like it's um, they feel good, you feel good, and it lands for them. So let's talk about the three kinds of common uncomfortable situations, how best to deal with them in conversation. So as far as the rescheduling or cancellations or no show situations, one of the most common things I hear about this is that um, there so the first thing I ask about is, if there are those kinds of situations that tend to happen, cancellations and no shows, do you actually have a policy in place around that, and that the patient signs? So many times I hear this, that like, no, I don't actually have them sign anything, but I'm kind of annoyed about this because it keeps happening. And then sometimes I also hear docs say, well, I do, but I don't enforce it. And so then part of it is about setting those. The first question to ask yourself is, do you have boundaries? And are they clear from the start? Because what can happen is that perhaps someone does it and they don't realize it's that big of a deal for as an impact to the clinic and to the practice, or to you for that matter. And they just think, oh well, I was, a little bit late, or oh, something really happened in my life, and I need to take, I need to do this, or I need to do this other thing instead. So let me just reschedule when it's more convenient for myself, right? And they don't think about the impact of it on the practice itself, whether it's loss in revenue, or your time schedule being messed up and someone else not being able to see you because of that. And so part of it is, are you bring that up front when a patient starts at the beginning of care? So this is happening not in like the when they start doing this thing and you get annoyed, but rather the very first visit. Do you go over it with them, or someone in your office goes over it with them, and then have them sign it so they're very clear that this was like an important thing that they even needed to sign from the beginning? And then part of this is, well, what do you say in the cancellation policy? And I can share with you a few phrases from a cancellation policy of a practitioner. And then if you would like more of the full sample of this, you're welcome to message me and happy to give it to you. So, for example, this one starts out saying, "We consider each appointment made to be a promise and expect this agreement to be honored." So notice that it starts off with like the context of the importance of keeping agreement, including making appointments. And although we understand that events can occur unexpectedly, this policy ensures that we can keep our doors open and uphold our end of the agreement made by each appointment. And then they set the expectations as far as, if you don't show up, then what do you do, right? So do you have in your cancellation policy, what do you do? Like, you give verbal agreement or written, verbal or written notice about it, at least X time frame in advance, whether it's a day in advance or what, that kind of thing. And then in the event that they cancel, what is your policy for that? For example, for some clinics, it's where allowing a one-time good faith pass, and there's no penalty that will be incurred the first time around. And then after that, then there would be penalty, like in terms of either a cancellation fee that is partial, or even all of the expected visit fee, right? So then this is just an example of a few phrases from a cancellation policy of a practitioner. Again, you can message me if you'd like to have the rest of this, or to see it in a template format. Now, as far as a sample, now the so sign that have the patient sign that cancellation policy from the first visit itself. And then the next thing is that, the second thing is, are you putting those boundaries in place because you get what you tolerate? Meaning that, like, for one, so number one, do you have boundaries? Number two, are you putting those boundaries in place? Number three, like, are you, and actually tied into number two is your tolerance of the boundaries, is what I was going to say about that, actually, because you get what you tolerate. And that comes both energetically, of how you show up for yourself. Like, are you on time also, right? Because if you are running late all the time, then what the patient observes is, oh, well, I guess it's okay to be late, so I'm going to start showing up a bit later, because I don't want to be wasting my time, and so in the office, so I'm just going to show up later too. And then it creates this culture of showing up late, right? So part of enforcing boundaries and is also you living up to your standards of boundaries as well. And then being firm about the boundaries. Sometimes we could feel bad. We could feel really bad that like, oh, I don't want to, especially those of us who are people pleasers. Like, I know myself, I tend to be more of a people pleaser, and then I will feel bad, and then I'll I'll think, oh well, okay, I'll just let it slide this one time, and I guess it wasn't intentional. So and then or saying things like, oh, that's okay, when you don't really mean that's okay, right? So it's about being authentic with what you really mean about that too. You could say, I understand you're stuck in traffic, so I totally get it, and thank you. I really appreciate you moving forward and showing up on time. So it's being respectful of both of our times, and you get your full treatment, right? So it's about how you frame it, and then in a positive way, in a loving and caring way as well. And then the third thing has to do with, have you surprised your patients before? So as it relates to overall boundaries, so I'm talking about, this applies to cancellation or schedules and that kind of thing, but it does apply to other matters like payment issues and other kinds of things too, which we'll talk about coming up here. So for example, have you actually surprised your patients and they got caught off guard? And what do I mean by this? So I mean, related to boundary kinds of things. So I confess, I it happened one time in my life when I was seeing this dentist, and it took me an hour to drive each way there, and it was so it was a holistic dentist office, right? So but then when I went there, there are a couple times when I went there and they put a filling in and then it would pop out. Like this happened several times, and then anyway, I still went to this place because it's a holistic dentist office, and I wanted to go to a holistic dentist. And then I was bad. Like I would actually show up late. I'm actually someone who's very like spot on time with my client appointments, client calls, client prospect calls, all kinds of things I'm on time for because I'm in respect of time with that. But then I was not showing up on time, and because I was driving and then stuck in traffic because I don't drive that often that way, and then I get stuck in traffic and then forget the next time around that, oh my gosh, it actually takes a lot longer to get there, right? So this happened, I believe, like maybe two or three times, and and then one day I showed up to the clinic. I got taken outside by the practice manager, and basically she fired me from the practice. She just said, it's just a reflection of you not taking this seriously with your health and everything. And I was thinking to myself, good for you for firing me. That was one of my first thoughts. And then I thought, okay, because I also respect boundaries, and so for that part of me, I thought, good for you. And then the other part of me, I thought, how would I feel as a patient though if I really were feeling into how I feel? I was completely caught off guard. I mean, was literally taken outside and just told, like, see you later. We can't see you as part of the practice, and so I think part of it is that it caught me by surprise because I wasn't told that, hey, you're late this time, and I would really request you to be on time next time, or, because XYZ, right? It was like I had my three strikes, and then all of a sudden I was kicked out of the practice. I mean, I deserved it, but still, right? So, but that's where, coming from the patient perspective, um, it can feel like, well, someone just took me by surprise. I thought this is totally okay. This kind of a boundary is okay, right? And not boundary, this kind of action is okay. So you get what you tolerate, and if you don't explain to people, and also shift them back towards what is the what your values are, and what boundaries you have as part of the practice. If you don't take that opportunity to communicate that, even if it might feel uncomfortable, to let them know that, and then you end up getting upset about it one day and be like, screw it, I'm not going to accept this patient anymore, and you say goodbye to them, like, we don't want you as part of this practice. They'll be really surprised, right? So I know I shared an extreme example of myself with it, but still, that's the kind of thing that a patient could experience if they continue to push boundaries, and then you don't end up um, you don't end up reinforcing or re-educating or them about your values and boundaries. So Now, it's still really important, no matter what, in this situation or in any situation, to really come from a place of care and love for them too. And so I think sometimes if we might feel like something is an uncomfortable conversation, it's because we are afraid of what we might think other people will react, or we might judge them for how we sometimes might base our lens on what we've experienced of that person in the past and how we think they'll respond. And we start to judge them about how they might respond or not, or get upset or not, or that kind of thing. And so if we end up putting our energy of those expectations energetically into the field, into the space of communication, then it can show up that way because you are actually projecting that, and then you get what sometimes in our lives, right? We get what we project. And so it's really important for us to unclutch is a powerful word I learned from a spiritual enlightened master. And I think it's a beautiful word to like, as you go into uncomfortable conversations, or potentially your concern is that it could be an uncomfortable conversation. Unclutch from that thought of that it'll be an uncomfortable conversation, because you don't know if it will be, and why insert that kind of energy already starting off as a context of the conversation. Like, come to it with love, come to it with a place of understanding and care and communication, and still wanting to help your patient, and they will be able to feel that energetically, and your sincerity. And so that's really important with this too, because sometimes it can be easy to get annoyed, right, when people may do something that might affect your schedule, your time, or that loss of revenue for the practice when they decide not to show up or come in late and that kind of thing. So now the second kind of a situation related to potential uncomfortable conversations with patients that may arise is related to payment issues. So have you ever had people either like they still have this bill, and then they say, "Oh, I'll take care of it," and then they don't take care of it, and then or you still continue to treat them, or you don't continue to treat them, but then it's like they just don't pay, right? So what do you do in those situations, because it can feel uncomfortable? You have that relationship with the patient, and you're helping them, you come from that energy of helping them, but they're not paying you. So certainly in an environment where you have a front desk help kind of a person, admin person, this is going to be easier for you to navigate, because you can just fully focus on being the doctor and not have to have those conversations with the patient. But sometimes, especially if you're starting out, or maybe patient volume isn't there yet enough for you to hire someone to support you, then you might need to carry on these conversations yourself. In either of those situations, it would be about how you can navigate that in a way that ends up feeling good for both of you, and that you are able to also end up collecting on the payments that for the services rendered, or what was promised. And so if it has to do with training, then it's a matter of you having a good way of approaching it, that you can train your front office staff, because not every person has the same kind of level of handling it, or understanding, or has the context of what you value within the practice, as far as how what's important as values in the practice, and how best to communicate that warmth and love while holding firm boundaries, for example, related to payments. And so part of this is, again, being able to be loving, while at the same time reminding them, or that their payment is due, and then also setting time frames. For example, let's get this taken care of today. Okay, so just having languaging in there that leads to resolution, and then if they have trouble with it, then work with them on it, and again, still set very clear and firm boundaries of expectations. And this is where you may also want to consider payment policies as well. If people are not paying, or late in payments, what happens there too, as far as whether it's tacking on on late fees if not paid by a certain time frame. But these things again really need to be shared upfront with the patient, so there's mutual understanding of this, and it's not something you just pop in there when and they get surprised by because you just ended up getting tired of them not paying you for months and months. So these are things to keep in mind related to helping you if you were to have uncomfortable, like if you're concerned about having uncomfortable conversations with patients about payments. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years as a healthcare practitioner is in being really warm and loving, and then at the same time holding firm boundaries related to payments. And the truth is that the right kinds of people will align with that, and then the people who are upset about it, it's it's not necessarily a result of your policy being too firm and that kind of thing, or that you should do something different just because of a few people, or getting upset and that kind of thing. It's really looking at what are you seeking to attract as far as the kinds of patients you would love to work with. Would you love to work with people who value integrity? Would you love to work with people, or would you love to work with people who have so many loops in integrity, and you always feel like you end up getting shafted, or right? So just in terms of being really clear about who you would really love to attract, can really help with that. And so the third kind of uncomfortable situation that could happen is if a patient isn't following their treatment plan, and they're frustrated because they're expecting results, but they're not seeing it. Have you ever experienced that before? Go ahead and like it in the chat or comment below if you are have experienced that at some point in time. And so this can feel like I'm doing what I can for the patient, but it's so frustrating that they are now putting the onus on you, because even though they didn't actually follow either the timeline of the treatment plan and not coming in for visits regularly, perhaps, or maybe with certain recommendations that you made for in between the visits, and then they don't listen to it, and but they still expect that kind of results, or expectations, whatever kind of expectations that perhaps you had set or not set. Like maybe you didn't set expectations about results, and then they just expect it to be better after a couple of visits or adjustments, or right. So then it's really important for, again, to look at it as a way to educate. This is where it's going to be so helpful to educate before the first visit, even, and before they choose to become a patient, when they become a patient, but before their first visit. And then during the visits, at every single visit, how can you continue to educate them about why it's still really important to stick with their treatment plan, or listen to what your recommendation. And one thing to think about could be like, what are to share with them is, what are the consequences of not following the treatment plan, and to just continue to educate and remind them. I know what it can feel like. It can feel like being a broken record at times, but this is something that will be very beneficial for your patients, and then they will slowly start to understand more and more. Because remember, you're coming from a place of a lot of clinical knowledge, and they're coming from a place of typically a lot less clinical knowledge than you. So you automatically have a high baseline of clinical understanding. They might not have that baseline of understanding. So even when you fill in the cup with that kind of knowledge and teachings, like they might only receive a little bit of it, because they just can't it's already too much overflowing. Like you give them a little bit and it's already overflowing, right? The cup's already overflowing. It's like too much for them to take in. So then just look at how can you consistently educate so that they end up following their treatment plan, and have realistic expectations about results. Also, part of what's worked really well for our chiropractors is having do you have visuals that you could show your patients that really show the progression of their care? It's not just like, oh, here is the sciatica and what it looks like, and then here is like, this is better. It's not just like the two images of that. for example, right? It's like, do you have ways to really show visually the progression of what's really happening and how it's supporting their care? And that can be very helpful for patients understanding, so that you don't have to feel like you have to get to that point of an uncomfortable conversation when someone's feeling like you didn't really help them in the way that they thought that you would. So bottom line, it really starts, whether any of these situations of the three that I've shared with you, whether it is um, the rescheduling, cancellations, no shows is the first kind of potential uncomfortable conversation situation. Second, payment issue or payment matters. Or third, people not following their treatment plan, but then expecting those results, and then being upset about it. Is that, like, bottom line, it starts from the beginning. How you communicate, actually, even before they come into the practice, like, how are you marketing your practice? How are you communicating both energetically and in what you say about the kinds of patients you'd really love to attract? Because even like I mentioned earlier about attracting patients with integrity, if you are showing up energetically with integrity, if you are also walking the talk of integrity, you will likely also attract people in more in alignment with integrity. It will be 100%. It may not be 100%, but it will start to align more and more to that. And then also, it's not just energetically, because you could energetically be in integrity yourself. And by the way, integrity is word with yourself and with others too, in the sense of, like, do you keep your word to yourself? Do you tell yourself, I'm going to get up in the morning and go to the gym, and then you sleep later, because you decide you want to sleep later? And because that is still being out of alignment with integrity, because you told yourself you would do that, right? If you didn't tell yourself you do that, then that's not breaking word with yourself. But if it is, then you're breaking word with yourself. And so, how is that lining up for yourself? How is your integrity with other people? What you say you will do, or do you do it? What about the agreements that you sign? When you sign them, do you try to back out of agreements? Do you try to cancel? Do you try to reschedule? Because if you do these things energetically, it also attracts, like, you might attract people who mirror that in you too. Again, it's not all the time, but it's just an opportunity to look in and see if there's opportunity for cleaning up, um, our own integrity and alignment with word. And I will say, I'm not always perfect with this too either, right? But it's in terms of, how can we look at these things as an opportunity for how can we look in and realign ourselves integrity wise, because then we will attract less of this coming up too. And then and so, how you show up energetically, what you say about the kinds of patients you accept, and like, we accept patients who are serious about their health, right? Like, even the kinds of languaging that you use, instead of like, oh, we accept just about everyone. It just notice what you're saying. Notice what's put on social media. Notice what you put on your website. Is it like, is it never really talked about? It's just more about letting people know how you could help. But are there actual is there actual languaging describing the characteristics of a kind of person you would love to attract, in terms of again, aspects of them, like they're serious about their care, and they they um, they tend to seek holistic options. I mean, they seek holistic options whenever possible, right? So just think about what could be included in the languaging, what could be communicated in your marketing, even before they become a patient of yours. So, and then when they do come to your practice, how you communicate your values, your boundaries, and then your care for them. So, if you would like that cancellation policy sample, you're welcome to message me. And then, for more, if you found this helpful, for more 6 and 7 figure practice makeover tips and free tips, and you can go to introvertedvisionary.com. So, to you, having more, being able to attract people you really love working with, and also having these boundaries in place, and that way you're feeling good about it, they're feeling good about it, And then you also are really able to focus on helping your patients the best that they can. So till next time.
Join us each week as we bring you the best in business growth, practice management, social media marketing, networking, leadership, and lots more. If it's about women in practice and business, you'll hear it here. We hope you enjoyed this week's Facebook Live event. Please like us on Facebook, comment, and share. We look forward to seeing all of you next week for another episode of Empowering Women in Chiropractic. Now, go ahead and hit the share button and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. This has been a Chiro Secure production.